Today we have a Wim Kees Janssen. He's CEO and AI-generated test data expert. He's one of co-founders at Syntom. Also, Marijn Wong will join us a little bit later. He is our Chief Product Officer, and he will do the demo and tell you a little bit more how you can actually generate high-quality test data. And also me today. So I'm Juliana Matiszewska, and I'm Business Development Executive. So really enjoy the synthetic data talks with our clients. So looking forward to your questions. As a beginning, I would like to share a little bit about the polls we shared in LinkedIn. So we asked a couple of questions to the audience. For example, what is the main challenges with test data management? And we saw that the main challenge is data quality. And after that, it's data privacy concerns. The poll number 2 was around how much time you spend as a test data manager or quality engineer on creating good test data. So around 35% people told that they are spending from 25 to 50% of their time, and 27% of people told that less of 25. So it's still a really big amount of time. So we at Synto trying to simplify it as much as possible. So we will let you know how we do this. So next one poll was regarding which data are you using? Because due to the regulations, you cannot really use the real data. And a lot of companies still do this. So now we see it change a little bit. So 65% of people mentioned that it's a combination of real and synthetic data, but still certain percent are using the real data. Yeah. And the last one, it's more about how your test data is reflecting the production data. So I think almost half told that it's partially, and only 39 yes. So I do believe this part of 39, it's also the part of people who are using real data. Maybe, I'm not sure. So also, feel free to share how do you do it now within your companies. And the last one was about the synthetic data adoption. And what we see, it's really good trend, because as we did webinar last year, in comparison to this year, we see that the awareness regarding synthetic data usage and AI-generated synthetic data usage in the test data management really changed. So now around 33% of all respondents want to go and learn about synthetic data and try to adopt it into the daily routine. So it's really great that, it started to be more awareness about synthetic data. So I will start the short intro about our team and what we are doing. So Synto was formed in 2020, right before the COVID, always fun for new startups. But we did first remote pilot, and they went really nice. So now we have 22 people on board, really, really nice and technical team. So we're really moving forward in terms of a platform. Now, it's really nice to share that we combine all synthetic data generation in one platform. And it's about AI-generated synthetic data, smart identification, and test data management. We will go through all of these approaches, but mainly focus for sure in a smart identification and test data management today. So I think this slide really showcased the platform capabilities and features. So when we speak about AI-generated synthetic data, we have our own quality assurance report where we combine how good synthetic data is. We have also external evaluation by experts from SAS. So we also have a partnership with them, and they evaluated Synto platform. And we also support time series synthetic data, which is actually the data which are in every business. You speak about smart identification, we support PII scanner, and we will tell a little bit more about that. We have synthetic mock data and consistent mapping. And as a part of test data management, besides the previous features, we have rule-based synthetic data and subsetting. So in this case, using our platform, you have an opportunity to solve 3 different cases, and you don't need 3 different applications for that. So test data challenges. Yeah, I think it would be nice if you can we can interact with the audience a little bit. So we have a poll questions for you, also to understand how you're using creating synthetic data, which type of data are you using. So now we will get the first poll, and we will give you 5-7 seconds to answer. So actually, what is the challenges with with test data you are facing now? It's about the privacy concern, availability, quality, or relevance. So yeah, please vote. It's really interesting to know what is going on in your organizations. Okay, so great. I think you can see results as well. So yeah, 60% that is about data quality, but 90 about the privacy concerns. Great. So today we can focus a little bit more about on it as well. And then data relevance, yeah, and data availability is the last one. Okay, super. Thank you very much. And it will be next one about poll question before we'll move forward. Okay, which data are you using now for test data management? So are you using real production data or synthetic data or combination of both? I can tell you that we are using synthetic data for sure. It's really easy for us, I would say. But yeah, it's really interesting. How do you do it now? Okay, super. So combination of both, great. So if you can also drop a message in the chat about what kind of synthetic data are you using, and if some tools, which tools, because it's also really interesting if it's more like a new and advanced technologies or it's dummy data approaches. So yeah, feel free to send it in the chat. Great. So we are coming to the test data challenges. I do believe most of people know actually what is the challenges is, but if to summarize it a little bit, so what we see so far with organizations we are cooperating, that it doesn't really matter in what country or what kind of organization, but all organizations have a problem with the right mirroring of production data, to be sure that all data are really compliant and private, because it's really important for the organization, but also for users, to have flexibility in terms of variations and scenarios, which are now and which will have in the future, and also really decrease the manual work, because now it's time consuming. So at Synto, we are focused in 2 main things. So one, it's it's mimic. So we would like to synthesize and identify the data. And second one is to improve the data we have. So that is why we have rule-based synthetic data and subsetting to do it easier for our clients. As a result, with synthetic data platform like Synto, you will have an opportunity to have a good quality test data, also compliant data. You will have it as a tool for privacy and to check in privacy. And you will be able to create new approaches for test and development use cases. So that is why if you talk about challenges, we can group them in 3 parts. So first is reflection on production data and a lot of manual work, and it's not covering actually the scenarios. And as a result, with Synto, you can do it privacy by design, because we will help you to identify PIIs, to mock them in a certain way that you will know 100% that you are not, that you mock all data it's needed. It's also easy, fast, and agile, because tool itself, it's connected all the time to production database, and you can update it quite easily. And yeah, the test data coverage, it's actually, you can cover all possible scenarios. So for now, I would like to invite Wim, our CEO, to tell a little bit more about test data with Synta and go a little bit into details.
Thanks, and yeah, looking forward to deep dive together with you all into test data management with Synto. Yeah, as mentioned by Juliana, yeah, typical challenges exist, and we are looking forward to deep dive today into our approach. So yeah, the starting point is always to mimic a production data set as closely as possible. We do that with AI-generated synthetic data and smart de-identification to get a test data set that mimics the production data set as closely as possible to have production-like test data. And to actually improve it, so with rule-based synthetic data, we can cover potential new future scenarios, and with subsetting, we can make a database smaller. We will deep dive into that today. During previous webinars, we already deep dive into AI-generated synthetic data. So therefore, we want to focus today mainly on smart de-identification and the methods to improve test data in comparison to production data. Let's start with smart de-identification. So first, de-identification is the process of protecting sensitive information by removing or modifying personally identifiable information, PII. And those include first names, last names, social security numbers, any identifier that if you know it, that you directly can identify a person. And that's one of the approaches that can work complementary with AI-generated synthetic data. As we are typically talking about large multi-table databases, this allows our customers to combine all the best practices. What makes our solution smart? That's the combination of our PII scanner. We use AI to identify PII automatically with AI. Synthetic mock data, we can substitute sensitive information by other synthetic mockers. And we use consistent mapping to preserve referential integrity in an entire relational data ecosystem. So let's start with our PII scanner. So as mentioned, we use AI to identify PII automatically. As you see in the examples, how we identify the columns containing PII. In this case, the columns are the first names and the social security columns. That allows you to enhance data privacy and compliance with regulations. But also saves you a lot of time and cost, because typically if you are working with large multi-table databases, this can take a lot of time and manual work. So our PII scanner allows you to do this fully automatically. Our PII scanner automatically identifies what column it is. So if it's a first name, it identifies it as PII and also identifies that it is a first name. And this is important because based on that, we can work with mockers, which allows our users to replace the real first name with a synthetic first name. And we support over 150 different mockers, ranging from default mockers like the first name, last name, and social security mockers, but also to more customizable mockers. As you can see here, the real first names are replaced with synthetic mock names, and the real social security numbers are replaced with synthetic mock social security numbers. Together with that, we also allow for consistent mapping, and this is important to preserve the referential integrity in an entire data ecosystem. So in this case, we map the same first name always with the same synthetic mock name to make sure that the referential integrity is preserved. And this works across tables, this works across databases, and this works across data systems. And this allows you to consistently map to preserve the referential integrity. We will deep dive into how you can apply this, but as mentioned, the steps are first to identify PII with our PII scanner, then a mocker is selected, or you can select it manually, and then you can apply the mocker and, if relevant, apply consistent mapping. I would like to continue with our test data management suite, which allows you to create, maintain, and control representative test data for non-production environments. The solutions that we provide is smart de-identification, synthetic data generation, rule-based synthetic data, and subsetting, and we will deep dive into them today. The real challenge for test data management is how to use solutions to create representative test data in your non-production environment. Those can be your development, test, acceptance environments. And to do that, we first aim to mimic the production data as closely as possible. And we can do that with synthetic data generation and with smart de-identification. And users can combine them on table level or column level to have a hybrid approach. And we will show this during our demo. And this allows our users to have a test data set that mimics the production data as closely as possible. However, this is typically the starting point because actually you want to improve your test data. You want to have a test data that is better than production data for testing purposes. To do that, we support rule-based synthetic data, and that allows you to create additional data from scratch or to add columns. And this can enhance data quality, relevance for test data, and to cover for test scenarios that are not covered yet with production data to have an improved test data set. We also support subsetting, and that is to make a relational database smaller. This feature will be launched soon, and that's we will show how this works as well today. So first, de-identification and synthetic data generation. This is, as mentioned, solutions to create a test data set that mimics the production data as closely as possible. And we use de-identification as illustrated in the beginning. And we use synthetic data generation. And there we use AI to mimic statistical patterns as closely as possible in the synthetic data. And I think the unique functionality that we support is that we allow our users to combine them to configure on table level or column level how you want to configure this. And that also allows you to not have a one solution approach, but to pick the solution that fulfills your use cases as best as possible. Rule-based synthetic data, this allows you to set up certain business rules. Our platform is configured to allow you to easily set up those business rules. And this allows you to generate data from scratch. And that allows you to create test data that is not covered yet with production data. That allows you to have the full flexibility to customize your data to make it even better for testing purposes. It can be used to enrich data. Sometimes you do not have enough data and you want to create more data, or you do not have data at all. If you build a new functionality, typically you do not have data yet because you do not have users. And then you want to be able to generate new data from scratch. And finally, data cleansing. So there can be challenges in the data quality. And with rule-based synthetic data, you can optimize that. Finally, subsetting. So subsetting allows you to create a smaller version of a referential database. So in this case, your real database can contain 10,000 persons. And with subsetting, we want to make it smaller to create, for example, a database containing 500,000 persons. This is not as simple as just deleting those 9,500 persons, because it also means that all the data in the corresponding tables needs to be removed as well. And that's what we can do with subsetting. And this allows our customers to reduce infrastructure costs, computational costs, because big databases are expensive. Make the data more manageable for testers and developers, and to allow our users to be faster in terms of data setup and maintenance, because creating a large database also takes more time and resources. And if you want to be agile, you want to do that in a faster way. So that is subsetting, and allows our users to create a smaller database. We will demonstrate those use cases in a bit, but before we do, I also want to share some of the use cases with you, to make sure that you have an idea about where we are working with. So I think the first use case is with a leading fintech company and a Dutch insurance company. So this Dutch insurance company are naturally operating, and it's a health insurance company with more than 650,000 customers. And the data set is of course sensitive, and they want to have good test data to create and improve their internal systems, their IT systems. And that includes multiple applications. They want to do frequent updates because the test data needs to be maintained and needs to be up to date. This is also to minimize risk related to using personal data as test data. And the challenge was that there was a strict deadline for the end of the year. So our solution was to use the combination of synthetic data, de-identification, and test data management functionalities like the rule-based synthetic data and the subsetting module. Hopefully we get that live soon to be able to create proper test data. We are more than happy to deep dive further with you if anyone is interested in understanding more about what we are doing with this organization or similar organizations. And I think then it's time to proceed with a live demo. To also show you how the platform works and how the platform will be used in practice. So I think that is something where we will start soon with. Before we do that, I see some questions in the chat from participants. So if you have any questions, please share them in the chat, and then we will cover them with you. I think the first question that we received is related to how the platform is deployed. What we typically show our users is our website, and that is something we will share after this session as well. So if you go to our website and navigate to the platform section, you will see deployment and integration. And there you will find our high-over deployment architecture. So we typically deploy via containers, either Docker or Kubernetes, so that we can deploy the platform in the safe and trusted environment of our customers. And part of this is either a Sinto web user interface, so that users can use our platform easily, or an API, so that the platform can be integrated into a data pipeline. So that allows our users to easily work with the platform and to generate synthetic data easily. It is always important to also demonstrate how the platform integrates. So this platform can then easily be deployed in AWS, Azure, any cloud environment. It can be deployed on-premise or in any other environment. That's really how we optimize our platform, so that Sinto never sees, processes, or receives any of the real data. From there, we provide various connectors to connect to the source data. That's the data that you want to synthesize. And we connect with the target data. So that's the environment. So that's the environment where we want to write the test data to. And with that, you have an end-to-end integrated approach. The typical hosting and data access requirements are shared here. So we optimize our platform to be able to run on CPUs, so that GPUs are not needed, to make it as smooth as possible. And typically, depending on the scope, we have different suggestions to make sure that the platform can work as good as possible. So this also gives you an idea about the hosting and deployment requirements. We will share this link with you so that you can review that combined with our product documentation. I see that Marijn joined the call as well. So I think maybe it's good to start with a demo, and then if there are further questions, please share them in the chat so that we can cover them after the demo.
All right, then we'll take it over from here. Let's start by sharing my screen. All right, there we go. Can you actually see the right screen? I think so, yeah. All right, so let me actually start from the beginning. So how does our platform work? Like with any platform, you always have to log in as a particular user. And yeah, so you can log in using email password. We also provide more secure options, such as single sign on integration. Now just logging in using username password. And now currently entering the Launch Your Workspace panel. So this is where it all starts. Here you can start well, creating or opening an existing workspace. And what does that mean? So if you would start by creating a new workspace, that essentially means that you connect to your source database that you want to well, synthesize using generative AI, or want to de-identify. Yeah, so you fill in the details here to connect to that source database. Then you would also have to do that for the destination database. So that's where you're going to write the generated data to, so the de-identified or synthesized data. Then you give a name to the workspace, and you can confirm by creating the workspace, selecting the Create Workspace button. And then you get an overview of these workspaces that you created here. And you can reuse them over time. So maybe you have done some configurations in a particular workspace, that you can just open it again and work from there. So let me actually open a workspace that I created before, that contains some sample patients information. And so I'm currently opening it. Yeah, so we're now forwarded to this so-called job configuration panel. So this is really the panel where we can configure everything around our data generation job. Yeah, given this particular workspace. So this workspace is actually connected to this sample database with the tables that you can see on the left. Already did some configurations here, but yeah, you can see it contains like roughly 15 different tables that are also connected. And yeah, we want to, yeah, what we can do with this table is we can either synthesize those tables, or we can de-identify them, or we can even use a combination thereof. So that's also the idea of the platform, that we provide the different options inside one platform. Because in some cases you may want to go for one, yeah, for the one approach, in other cases another approach. So that's yeah, all facilitated in one platform. So let me start by yeah, explaining what we see here. So on the left, which we see synthesize, de-identify, exclude. Those are the three table modes of the platform. So that means yeah, synthesize. With that we mean you generate entirely new data using our AI powered generation, but you can also combine it with mock data. With de-identification, that's actually a different case. There you are gonna replace the most sensitive columns in your data. So then, yeah, if you want to do that, you drag it. You can drag the table under there. But okay, I leave it as is for now. And yeah, let's now move on to what we can do once we have selected the table mode. So for this particular patients table, I've indicated I have it under synthesize. So now what can we do? We can now go look into the different columns that exist under this table. And yeah, to start off with, you see already some of the columns are actually marked as PII, which stands for personally identifiable information. So those are typically columns such as, yeah, that can be used to directly identify an individual. So that can be social security numbers, person names, passport numbers. So yeah, normally those contain values that, yeah, that uniquely identify an individual. So those columns are already marked as PII, or at least for some of them. That's actually something I did not do myself manually, but this actually came out of the PII scanner that has been run a while ago. And this PII scanner helps you to quickly identify those PII columns throughout your entire database. Then the scanner, which also uses like named entity recognition models on the hood, so it looks at the data itself next to the column names and metadata. But yeah, it then results into some confidence score for each column, indicating how confident it is that this column contains sensitive PII data. Then you can replace those columns with a bunch of different options. So this specifically for those PII columns, we always recommend applying, applying mockers, for instance. So here we had a last name column identified, where our PII scanner suggests to replace it with a last name mocker. You can also change the locale. You can set it to unique, with some other options available. And then you can generate, you can confirm setting this mocker. So yeah, this is essentially a bit how it works for those PII columns. Now I actually have the table under synthesize. That means that the non-PII columns are actually not replaced with mockers, but they go through our AI generated AI models. So for instance, if I go to this gender column, I select it, then we see it's an AI powered generation, which essentially means that all the columns which have this AI powered generation applied will go into our generative models, and our generative models will learn the patterns, relationships that exist between all those columns, and then generate an entirely new synthetic data set that preserves all those patterns. So yeah, here we let essentially the generative AI do the magic for those particular columns to generate new output data. And what we can also do, we can also even set, so I think I disabled it here, but we can also set for synthesized tables, we can also set to the number of rows to generate. We can generate as many rows as we had as input, but I can also potentially change this figure to any higher number I may want. Essentially upsampling the data. So that's another possibility. So this is synthesization. You can also use it for de-identification and combining different methods. So let me perhaps illustrate if I, for instance, here I have another table, a payers table. I can say, okay, I want to actually, not synthesize it, so don't feed it into our AI model to generate entirely new data, but I just put it on the de-identify, potentially strip away some of the most sensitive PII columns, and leave the rest intact. So those are some possibilities. That's another possibility I can do. So I can have different settings for different tables. So more advanced ways to replacing specifically the PII columns, as I just indicated, are for instance calculated columns, which is a new feature we recently introduced. There you can have it's kind of a rule-based way of generating data. I think it's especially actually relevant in combination with de-identification. So if I put it table in the here, how do I do that? Actually, I think I already did some setting here. I selected a calculated column, and essentially what I want to do here. So let me first explain you what I want to do. So if I go back, we see here we have a prefix column. Here we have a first name column. And actually what I want to do, I want to fill this first name column based on the values under this prefix column. So we have Mr. and Mrs. So what I essentially want to do is I want to fill the first name column with male first names in case there's a Mr. and with female first names if there is a Mrs. So that's something I can do using calculated columns. So here I did that using an if statement. So I checked, made an if statement where I checked the prefix column, whether it's equal to Mr. And in that case, I would apply, actually made a small mistake here, but apply a mock for a first name mocker for males. Otherwise, apply a first name mocker for females. So that's how I can then define my own custom logic, which can be very useful. Also, maybe in case you have columns that do not contain any data yet, you can also generate data from scratch in this way. Yeah, so this is to give you a bit of an indication of how our platform works. And I can imagine there will be quite some additional questions on this, but essentially this is briefly how our platform works. Bunch of different features. If you have questions, then we can dive into that. So feel free to shoot.
Thanks, Marijn, for sharing this with us. We have a couple of questions from the audience, and feel free to share them either via the Q&A or chat section with us. The first question that we received is related to the PAI scanner. Can the scanner identify sensitive information based on the field content and not on the column characteristics? And what type of metadata can the scanner handle to identify PAI characteristics?
Right.
I think interesting to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Let me see if we go back. So actually, short answer is yes. So our PAI scanner doesn't only look at metadata. So metadata and then with that I mean column names, data types, but it also looks at the actual data under it. So and actually we have two options available. So you can disable that. So the shallow scan actually only looks at metadata. But the deep scan actually looks at the actual data that's under it. So the deep scan will take a little bit more time to run. However, it's likely more accurate. The shallow scan only looks at the metadata. And then you can infer what kind of PAI is under which column. So that's both are facilitated.
Thanks for sharing that. I think I see another question related to the rule-based synthetic data generation. Would it be possible to share something about the typical rules that one can set? I think it'd be interesting to maybe share how it works, but also maybe in the product documentation that we can share later as well.
I will share, I think on the rule-based part, well, you can either do it with, ordinary, we have a bunch of different mockers. So I can give an example as well. Here, for instance, let's say we have this driver's license column. And let's say I want to kind of mimic the pattern that we see here. So we see some values that always start with S999 and then ends with 5 random digits, it looks like. So how can I actually do this? Instead of using directly a driver's license mocker, which may not be available, then we can actually apply what we call a custom text mocker. And in this custom text mocker, I can actually define based on some kind of regular expression patterns, this kind of string structure that I just showed. So it starts with S999 and ends with random 5 digits. So actually, here I can see also some information on how I would do this. So these hashtags are actually replaced with a random digit between 0 to 9. And I can also say, okay, in the original column, I saw there were some missing values. So let's say 15% of the values were missing. So I can mimic that like this, and then preview the values, and then you see actually how it comes out like this. So it very much, we see some missing values here as well. So this looks very similar, where we define our own kind of rules to generate this data. And I just showed the more advanced, we have more and more advanced ways to do this. So I just showed the calculated column mocker, for instance, where you can go deeper into if statements and relate columns to other columns. I can also here do multiple nested if statements, for instance. So I can I have an if statement based on this column. where I look if the value is Mr. and then have the first name Milmocker, but otherwise I can also say if that's not the case, I can say, well, what if the prefix value is actually Mrs. And then I can give another case, and I can do multiple nested functions. And I have a bunch of different, I think we have 50 different kinds of formulas. So for instance, concatenate, where I can concatenate different columns, for instance, a prefix and a last name column, for instance. Yeah, those kind of formulas are all exist in there. So with this, we give like all the flexibility to really customly define your business logic. But yeah, we can share the documentation on this as well, because it's quite a list and a bit too little time, I think, to go through all of those formulas here. But yeah, to give you some indication. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing this. I see another question related to someone. I know that this kind of simulated data is suitable for example, healthcare data, as the healthcare data needs to be privacy and safe. But we are challenging with multiple systems. Do you also preserve referential integrity across different systems?
Yeah, good question. So yes, we do that, and actually we try to be completely cover that case, that you can link tables across tables, but also across different systems. And some ways to do that. Well, on the one hand, we provide, I can briefly go to this foreign key step, which essentially looks at primary and foreign key columns. And those are handled to ensure referential integrity between tables. That's the one part. It can also be like for non-key columns, for instance, that you want to ensure that particular input values are consistently mapped to the same output values. So to give you an example, here we have a city column, and we see here in the 5th and 6th row, we see twice the value Boston, actually also here in the 8th row. So we see a couple of times we see the value of Boston. So what I would like to do, I want to mock this column, so replace this column, but I want to ensure that Boston is consistently mapped to the same output value, and that will also be the case when I apply the same settings in another database. So how do I do that? I can actually apply a mocker, as I showed before. So I can apply the city mocker like this. So if I now just preview the values, I just generate random values. But if I want to keep the consistency, I can enable this consistent mapping button and then preview the values again. And then we actually see here, and we see twice this value. Yeah, I can hardly pronounce it. My JFU. And this actually corresponds to this 5th and 6th value of Boston. Here it is, and the 8th value. So by enabling this consistent mapping, I ensure that Boston is always consistently mapped to this new value. And I can also, also when I do it in another, apply these same settings on another database, then we also ensure that Boston there is also mapped to these values. So yeah, that's how you can ensure data integrity across different systems even. And yeah, and I think one good thing to note here in terms of security, it's called consistent mapping, this feature, because it ensures that input values are consistently mapped to same output values. However, we do not store an actual mapping scheme or somewhere. So this under the hood, it makes actually use of so-called seed values. So no actual mappings are stored somewhere. Which from a security perspective is also what you would want.
Thanks. I think that is one of the questions that we received. I think we have time for some final questions. I think one of the questions that we received is, how does the process typically work if we would like to start with Sinto? So I think that is something we can also share. So yeah, let me share my screen for that. So what we typically see with organizations that are interested in our platform. We typically have a deep dive and decision-making phase. There we have, of course, the opportunity to meet Sinto, to do alignments with your needs and requirements. We can do a demo, a deep dive session with Q&A with our technical experts to support you in the decision-making process. And the goal is to support you in making a go, no-go decision. Suppose you decide to start, we typically start with a kickoff session where we align in terms of the requirements. We define a suggested hardware infrastructure, define a way of working, and we provide you with some planning with the outcome that you are ready to start with Sinto. Then we start with the deployment, and we typically verify the infrastructure, deploy the Sinto engine, conduct tests so that you can go live. And this is typically deployed in your safe and trusted infrastructure, as mentioned during the webinar. And the outcome is that the Sinto engine is ready to be used. Then we continue with the Sinto bootcamp. Typically, we include the Sinto engine users for trainings to make sure that the platform can be used. There we typically synthesize some sample data sets together, and optionally you can bring some own sets that you want to synthesize together with us. And the outcome is that you are ready to use the Sinto engine. And finally, you can continue data generation, so you can utilize the platform, and we provide ongoing customer support to make sure that the platform works, and customer success to make sure that you can use the platform as good as possible. With the outcome that you can utilize synthetic data at scale. So that's typically how we work. And then with that, I also want to finalize with our pricing model. So our platform is based on a software license. It's a monthly license, so that you can use our software easily. The platform is feature-based, which means that depending on the features that you use, that depends the pricing plan. So it's not consumption-based. So we have a fixed amount per month based on the features that you use. Included is pre-deployment. So that is typically how we work together. So as mentioned, we have the Sinto engine license. We have a certain number of users and connectors. Typical features include a PAI scanner for columns, the PAI scanner for free text, mockers, consistent mapping, time series data for AI-generated synthetic data, and upsampling to create more data based on a sample set. And of course, with support, we provide the documentation. We have our ticket system, and we typically open a dedicated communication channel, either typically via Microsoft Teams, so that we always have contact with the relevant persons. If interesting, we are more than happy to deep dive together with you further. I see that there are no further questions. So with that, I would like to thank you all for joining. Thank you all for joining this webinar related to test data management and test data generation. Hopefully we provided you with information relevant for smart de-identification, test data management, and potentially also AI-generated synthetic data. As mentioned, we are here to deep dive further with you in case there are questions. Hereby you can find our contact details to either have some questions one-to-one or to schedule, for example, a meeting or a demo. Next, you will receive from us an email, and in this email, you will find all the relevant information that we shared today. That includes the slides, that includes a link to the product documentation, and that includes the recordings. We are looking forward to continue the conversations and would like to thank you all for your participation in the webinar, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks a lot, and hope to see you soon. Enjoy your day.